The Fugitive Gold Mine. My name is Lydia Jerry. Before I met Allison Erickson, the biggest problem in my life was deciding whether to attend charity dinners wearing silver heels or gold heels. Then one rainy Tuesday in New Orleans, I met a homeless Nigerian guy with one backpack, two cracked phones, one impossible accent, and about 47 unfinished mobile apps in his phones and tablets. That was how my peaceful, rich girl life collapsed like cheap garden chair into a Nigerian lifestyle. And honestly, I regret nothing. The whole madness started at the beginning of Canal Street. I was standing at the bus stop, with umbrella in one hand, bag on the other, wearing oversized sunglasses because rich people like pretending nobody knows them even when they themselves dressed like escaped movie stars. Rain was drizzling lightly. Tourists were shouting. One street saxophonist was murdering jazz in public. Then this tall, dark man beside me suddenly said, "Excuse me, is this bus going to St. Josephine Street, or is this one of those buses that takes you somewhere spiritually confusing?" I looked at him. He looked at me. Then we both looked at the bus sign showing destinations, then back at each other. I laughed first. He laughed second. The driver laughed third for reasons nobody understood. That was Allison Erickson. At first glance, he looked like a university lecturer that had recently lost argument with electricity bill. His sneakers looked exhausted. His backpack zipper was tied with shoelace. One side of his eyeglasses was repaired with tape, so thick it looked medically prescribed. Yet the man carried himself with dangerous confidence and unknown dignity. The kind of confidence possessed by people who either have billion-dollar ideas or owe many people money. Later, I discovered he had both. We boarded the bus together, sat together. An old woman behind us was eating boiled eggs aggressively, and Allison leaned toward me and whispered, "I need your honest opinion." I said, "About what?" He pulled out one ancient-looking tablet. The screen was cracked like dry farmland. Then he opened an app. Suddenly, the app began identifying potholes on roads. Another app translated angry customer emails into polite language. Another predicted traffic movement. Another tracked exact geographical positioning down to ridiculous precision. Another one could identify whether someone was lying during phone calls based on voice patterns. It was the age when Android apps just transitioned to coveted apps. I stared at him. "Did you create all these?" He nodded proudly. "Yes." "Are they successful?" He became silent for 7 whole business days. Finally, he said, "One of them currently makes $132 weekly." I nearly swallowed my tongue. "132?" I asked ridiculously. "Before tax," he added. "There is tax on failure?" "America is organized," he said. I laughed so hard the egg woman behind us slapped my shoulder and said, "Baby, marry him. Ugly economy is coming." That old woman was a prophet. Over the next few weeks, Allison and I became inseparable. We walked around New Orleans eating cheap food while he explained apps to me with the passion of a man possessed. One evening I asked, "So why haven't investors funded you?" He sighed deeply. "Most investors want certainty, and my life currently looks like FBI documentary." Turns out Allison was not African American. That man was fully Nigerian. The Erickson was something he added because he said Americans trusted people sounding like Viking accountants. His original name was apparently so long that airport systems developed emotional fatigue. But the real madness came later. One night, while eating beignets, Allison finally confessed everything. He was an immigration fugitive, not overstayed visa fugitive, proper fugitive. The complete cinematic package. Years earlier, immigration officers detained him over documentation issues. During transfer between facilities, there was confusion involving power outage, food poisoning, one screaming detainee, and allegedly a support dog biting an officer's trousers. In the chaos, Allison disappeared, vanished, evaporated, like soap bubbles. I nearly choked. "You escaped?" He nodded calmly while chewing. "Yes." "And you're telling me this while fingerprints still exist? You seem trustworthy." "Sir, I am literally blonde." He shrugged. "Love is risk." That man used romance like a legal weapon. Unfortunately for everybody, especially my family, I fell completely in love with him. Now understand something. The Jerry family was wealthy beyond common sense. My father owned properties. My mother chaired organizations whose purposes nobody understood. My older brother Nathan believed every black man with confidence was secretly planning bank robbery or any crime. The day I introduced Allison to my family was the day peace left our bloodline permanently. Dad stared at Allison. Allison smiled. Dad stared harder. Allison smiled harder. Despite my efforts to dress him more presentable, he wasn't appealing to them. Finally, Dad asked, "So what exactly do you do?" Allison answered proudly, "I build revolutionary software ecosystems. In short, I'm software developer." Nathan whispered loudly, "He's unemployed." Allison replied, "Temporarily misunderstood by capitalism." My mother nearly fainted when Allison explained he was Nigerian. Right there, Nathan began searching for info on him. Nathan almost exploded when he discovered Allison was also an immigration fugitive. I still remember that dinner. Nathan slammed papers on the table dramatically. "This man escaped immigration detention." Mom screamed. Dad stood up. One auntie dropped pot full of soup. Allison quietly continued eating mashed potatoes. I whispered, "Why are you still eating?" He whispered back, "Rich people food is expensive. Or do you want them to say I'm wasteful?" My head exploded. That night, my family declared the relationship dead. Unfortunately for them, love had already entered advanced stage, the dangerous stage where logic packs its bags and relocates. I sneaked out to him. I encouraged him to let us run away to Ohio. We did. I became Allison's unofficial marketer. I began showing his apps to business people, tech people, investors, friends, people at charity events. One elderly millionaire looked at Allison's predictive logistics app and shouted, "Good Lord, this thing knows where my driver is before my driver knows." Investments slowly started trickling in, tiny amounts, but progress. Then disaster happened. Nathan hired investigators. 1 week later, federal officers tracked Allison to a remote area in Ohio where we had secretly run away together. Our elopement lasted exactly 2 weeks. 2 glorious weeks. We lived inside a tiny cabin. The heater barely worked. The bathroom looked emotionally unstable. But we were happy. Then one morning, we heard helicopters. I looked outside and screamed, "Allison!" Police were everywhere on ground. He looked through the window calmly. "Oh, oh, what? They found us." Federal agents stormed everywhere. One officer shouted, "Get on the ground." Allison raised both hands. Another officer pointed at me. "Ma'am, were you kidnapped?" I shouted. "I came willingly." Allison was charged for many crimes that a judge would have no choice than to sentence him. Nathan arrived later looking victorious like a man who personally defeated terrorism. I was dragged back home to New Orleans. Home arrest began immediately. My father and siblings monitored me 24 hours daily like I was nuclear material. Dad took mornings. Nathan took afternoons. My sister Clara took nights. Even food delivery became mockery session. Nathan would bring soup and say, "How's the fugitive romance?" Clara would bring juice and whisper, "Maybe you should date a beggar next time." Then Dad's immigration friend delivered joyful news. Allison would be deported to Nigeria in few weeks' time. My family celebrated like saints defeating demons. Meanwhile, I secretly contacted Allison in the Baton Rouge immigration holding compound. I smuggled messages through one sympathetic cleaner who loved romance novels. He wanted to see me. He said it was very important. I begged my dad to let me see him before deportation. Finally, Dad agreed to let me visit Allison one last time. Biggest mistake of their lives. Nathan drove me and Dad to the place. At the detention center, the moment Allison saw me, his entire face lit up. I nearly cried. He held my hands tightly. "Lydia? Alice June? I missed you too." Nathan interrupted immediately. "No touching." Then Allison suddenly asked, "Can I quickly use your tablet? They never allowed me access to mine." I handed it over instantly. He typed faster than human biology should allow. The screen looked possessed. Lines moved, maps flashed, codes appeared. At one point, I'm certain the tablet sneezed. "What are you doing?" "Fixing mistake." "What mistake?" "My precision location app." "The one investors loved?" "Yes, it was secretly being used by immigration and law enforcement systems." I blinked slowly. "What?" "That's how they tracked fugitives so accurately." "You built that?" He nodded sadly. "That app found us in Ohio." My own app betrayed me like African auntie seeing you in nightclub photos. I nearly screamed laughing. Then he whispered, "I've deactivated it." "You what?" "I disconnected the entire tracking ecosystem, even though the app still functioned partially." My soul left my body briefly. Then he shared ownership access of all his apps to me. "All investor controls are now linked to you." Nathan dragged me away while we were still talking. "You're done." "We still have 5 minutes," I shouted back. "No more criminal romance." Nathan almost screamed at us. A week later, absolute chaos exploded nationwide. Dad's immigration friends stormed into our house sweating heavily. Something is wrong. What happened? Dad asked. All fugitive tracking systems collapsed. The background system wasn't responding anymore. Apparently, every monitored fugitive vanished from digital radar simultaneously. Police couldn't track suspects properly anymore. Location precision systems failed nationwide. Officers were suddenly using old-fashioned methods again. Paper trails, street CCTV monitoring, physical surveillance, phone calls. One detective reportedly cried publicly beside printer. Dad's friend shouted, "Whoever designed that system has crippled operations." I quietly sipped juice. Inside my soul, drums and the drummers were playing. Meanwhile, I continued promoting Allison's apps, except the deactivated one. Ironically, my family unknowingly invested heavily through shell companies I recommended. Dad invested because he heard the apps were the future. Mom invested after seeing business forecasts. Nathan invested after pretending not to care. Clara forced Dad to invest for her. Within months, the apps exploded commercially. Traffic prediction, fraud detection, business logistics, voice analysis, cybersecurity. Every company wanted them. Millions began pouring in. Real millions of dollars poured into bank account I opened for Allison. Then one morning, Allison was being deported suddenly instead of a week's time. I finally confessed everything to immigration authorities. "You can't deport Allison," Controller General of Immigration declared. "Why?" Some of his subjects asked. "Because your entire tracking infrastructure depends on his systems." Silence. One officer blinked. Another removed glasses dramatically. "What?" Unfortunately, the plane carrying deportees had already departed for Africa. Panic erupted immediately. Calls everywhere. Emergency orders. One aviation officer screamed, "Turn that plane around." It was too late. One minute, you're emotionally preparing for Nigeria. Next minute, officers enter shouting, "We only need one guy." Apparently, Allison was treated like kidnapped scientist. The plane went on to Lagos Airport, but's very clear to immigration officers on board plane said, "You must return Allison Adeniregun, aka Allison Erickson." Only Allison was escorted back from Nigeria. The others continued journey looking deeply offended and troubled. At the airport arrival terminal, my entire family stood waiting beside me, telling me how wonderful Allison had been. Not protesting again, not angry. Proud, very proud. Dad adjusted his expensive suit nervously. Mom fixed her hair repeatedly as if she was receiving King Charles. Nathan carried welcome balloon against his will, at insistence of Clara, who was carrying another one. When Allison finally appeared escorted by officers, reporters nearly caused earthquake. Dad stepped forward smiling awkwardly. "Welcome back," Allison blinked. "Sir?" Dad coughed. "We may have judged you slightly." Nathan muttered. "Very slightly." My mother hugged him dramatically that she didn't give me enough time to hug him. "We're stakeholders now." Allison looked at me. I looked at him. Then we both burst into laughter so hard airport security became suspicious. Today, Allison's companies generate millions monthly. His apps are used worldwide. Investors worship him. Governments negotiate with him carefully. And my father introduces him proudly at parties saying, "This is my son-in-law. Brilliant young man. Almost got deported once." Nathan still hates admitting Allison was right. But last Christmas, I caught him secretly asking, "So theoretically, if somebody wanted app for tracking cheating girlfriends?" Allison smiled slowly. "Investment first."